Hey Anthony,
Yeah,
are we going to war with Venezuela?
I don't think so. I think what's happening right now is mainly posturing by the Trump administration to try and overthrow Maduro and gain control of Venezuela's oil reserves. But I don't rule out the possibility either. And I think that if we do end up going to war with Venezuela, it's going to be very similar to the second Bush administration's war on Iraq, in that it was a made up premise to gain control of oil resources. And while there will not be much resistance to the U.S. military in Venezuela, just like there was not a lot of immediate resistance in Iraq, it could end up with a long drawn out occupation that is mainly meant to fund the military industrial complex rather than whatever the purported goals of the U.S. are, in this case, Trump. And the administration is saying it's because of the war on drugs, which is one of the Republican administration's favorite talking points about invading other countries.
What makes people think we're going to war?
Well, a lot's happened recently, right? In the last couple months, we've attacked 10 boats in the Caribbean, 10 boats of Venezuelan origin, with military warships. Of those 10 boats that were sunk, there's at least 48 people dead, and we're currently moving further military assets into the region. The attacks on those boats was extrajudicial and most likely illegal according to international law, and the Trump administration is justifying them as saying that they were drug smuggling boats. There's been no actual evidence of that. In the same vein that the Trump administration is blaming all of the immigrants that they are arresting in the U.S. as like saying they're members of Venezuela's Tren de Aragua cartel. They're using the drug trade to justify what, by all accounts, are attacks on innocent fishing boats, right? On top of that, Trump has literally said that he wants to go to war with Venezuela, or to be more accurate and to use his words, that he has no intention of asking Congress for a declaration of war, and that we're instead just going to kill people, which, first of all, is unconstitutional. The president cannot declare war. That is something reserved solely for Congress. The president does have limited military powers to respond in military emergencies, but there's certainly nothing like that going on here, despite the attempts to frame drug trafficking as some type of national emergency. And we have a couple of other things on top of that. We know already that the Trump administration is very racist. The attacks on Hispanics and the blame put to Venezuelans and the Tren de Aragua gang in particular are an easy scapegoat for them. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also had it out for Venezuelans for a very long time and has claimed on multiple occasions that Maduro, the current dictator of Venezuela, is the leader of a designated narco-terrorist organization called Cartel de los Soles, and he's responsible for trafficking drugs into the United States, which is patently false. The existence of Cartel de los Soles has been debunked already, and while there is evidence that gangs like Tren de Aragua do operate out of Venezuela, none of those gangs have the level of power or coordination that the Trump administration is suggesting they have, or anything near the type of thing that would justify declaring war on a sovereign country like Venezuela, right? What it comes down to is the real reason that the U.S. wants to attack Venezuela, or the Trump administration in particular, is pretty much the same as when we invaded Iraq, right? We used overthrowing Saddam Hussein as a justification, as a precursor. We blamed it on nuclear weapons. In this case, it's being blamed on drugs. But it's because Venezuela has very large oil reserves that the country itself is not really capable of utilizing because of the economic costs to get the oil out in the first place. The U.S., on the other hand, could utilize those oil reserves, and so we want to basically take sovereign control of the nation to profit the oil industry. And on top of that, Maduro, the current leader of Venezuela, and his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, both strongly opposed U.S. interference in Venezuela and in the Latin American region in general, which is a fair point. The U.S. has a very long history of interference and overthrowing of legitimate governments in Latin America, and both Chavez and Maduro wanted nothing of it. So this could also be the U.S. simply responding to a sovereign country trying to get the U.S. out of their politics. Although Maduro, of course, has his own problems. He is, by all accounts, a dictator in the region and has driven Venezuela to ruin. On top of all of this, Trump just announced that he's going to authorize covert CIA operations in the area, which is just stupid if you ask me. Like, what kind of idea announces covert operations? The whole point of covert operations in the first place is that they are covert. There's a lot of signs pointing to it. I still do think right now it is mainly posturing. They're trying to get Maduro to capitulate to power and like do this the easy way by simply moving warships into the region. But given that we invaded Iraq under similar pretense and that the Trump administration is much worse than the Bush administration, I wouldn't put it past them to actually try and start a war.